Alright, so we are finding the common denominator. When do we need to find the common denominator? What time, when we're talking about fractions, when do I actually need to find the common denominator? What am I doing with fractions when I do that?
When adding or subtracting.
When adding or subtracting fractions. Do I have to do it when I'm multiplying or dividing?
No.
No, the only time we use with fractions to find a common denominator, we use when add or subtracting fractions. Remember, if I write it, you write it. There's a ton of different ways we can find a common denominator. One of those ways is the butterfly. Butterfly is super easy, but what happens is we get really big numbers when we do the butterfly. So when working with fractions, I personally like to use smaller numbers because the bigger the numbers, the more simplifying I'm going to have to do, the more turning improper to mixed numbers, and it just causes a big headache. But if I can make my numbers smaller, the smallest possible, then we'll be able to do that. So what we're going to find is not just the common denominator, we're going to find the least common denominator, which sounds a lot like least common multiple. And we find it the exact same way. So how do we find the LCM? What do we use?
The slide.
The slide. So guess what we're going to use to find the LCD, the least common denominator? The slide. So we're going to find LCD, least common denominator, we find the LCM using the slide. So our goal is to find the least common denominator, and we do that by finding the LCM. And all of us just about have proven that we know how to find the LCM when using the slide. Give you a second to write it down. So let's say I have the fraction 3/4 and 5/6. Okay? And the instructions are either going to, let's say the instructions are saying to add those two numbers. Add those two fractions. Okay? Well, the first thing I can do before I add them is to have a common denominator. So I like to circle the denominators. Are the denominators common?
No.
No, they are not the same. So that's what I'm going to end up putting in my slide. So 4 and 6 are what's going to go in the slide. On top of the slide, I'm going to finish writing the fractions. To find the denominator, we focus on the denominators. So I'm only going to focus on 4 and 6 in my slide. I'm not going to worry about my numerators at the moment. What can go into 4 and 6? 2. Why?
Because they're both even.
They're both even. So I can put 2 on the side right here. 4 divided by 2, 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 and 3 are side by side on the number line. I go 1, 2, 3. So there's nothing else that can be divided evenly between 2 and 3. So what does that mean? I stop. I'm done. I'm finding the LCD, which means I'm finding the LCM. So if I'm finding the LCM, what do I do for the slide? You got to draw the L and multiply. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So my new denominators are now 12. So the question is, now what do I do about the numerators? Because with fractions, whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. We have to keep it balanced. Because we touch the denominators, we've got to do something to the numerators. So it's a magic trick. Okay? I'm going to take my numerator right here. We're basically going to cross multiply. I'm going to cross all the way down to the bottom of the slide. And I'm going to go 3 times 3 is 9. And 5 times 2 is 10. And those are my new fractions. Okay? We have a common denominator, right? So I could add these now. We're not going to worry about adding right now. That's tomorrow. We're not even going to touch adding or subtracting. We're just doing common denominators. And that's all you have to do.
It's really easy.
It can be pretty easy and pretty simple. Let's try another one together. All right? What if I have 1/5 plus 2/3? 1/5 plus 2/3. Are my denominators common? No. So those are what's going to go in the slide. 5 and 3. It is very important that you keep them in the same order that they come in the problem. Because what's going to happen is you're going to swap them. Just get a new one. Oh. You're going to end up swapping it, and the order's going to be mixed up, and then you're going to get the answer wrong. So 1/5 comes first. 2/3 is second, 2/3 comes second in the slide. Okay? Order does matter. Because we're finding the denominator, we're just looking at the denominators. 5 and 3. Is there anything that goes into 5 and 3?
1.
1. 5 divided by 1 is 5. 3 divided by 1 is 3. Well, there's nothing else I can do, so I draw my L. And I multiply. And I get 15. So my new denominator is 15. Alright, so now I have to find my numerators. So I go to my numerators. Numerators with numerators, denominators with denominators. So I'm going to cross 1 times 3 is 3. And 2 times 5 is 10. So there's my fraction. Pretty easy, right? Yep, and that's all we're going to do today. Okay?